Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for the Art and Art History Virtual Information Session. My name is Megan Whiteface. I am an Associate Director of Admission for Native and Indigenous Student Recruitment. Before we get started, I would like to mention that we are utilizing closed captioning for this session, so participants can enable this option at the bottom of your screen by clicking the CC symbol. We will also be utilizing the chat Q&A feature for this session. So if you have any questions, you can type them into the Q&A section rather than the chat box. And then we will be answering those either live or in the Q&A box during this session. Any additional links for this session will be put into the chat box for you to take a look at. So I would like to hand it over to my colleague to introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Jason. I'm the academic coordinator of the School of Art and Art History. And so what I'm going to do is just go through the basics of the school and what you can expect. Here's my first art joke. Nice to greet you. I'm sure you're all laughing really hard right now. We have 4 undergraduate degrees. There are 2, well, there's an art history master's with a concentration in museum studies, but you don't have to think about that right now. So we have the 4 undergraduate degrees and 2 minors that you can choose from. We're a fine arts school, so it's painting, drawing, ceramics, photography, sculpture. And then the art history is pretty wide. Medieval, Asian, Middle Eastern, Mesoamerican, contemporary, and modern. We will also delve into the arts of the Americas as well. The question I get asked a lot is, do you need a portfolio? You do not. You can be an art major just by saying that you are. You also don't need to be an art major to take art classes. Our studios are open to all students that are registered in class. So if you feel like painting at 4 in the morning, we're not going to stop you. The only exception to that is our sculpture studio. That one locks up for safety reasons. Our degrees are good for making art and also just broad, out of the box thinking, critical problem solving. So if you've got parents who are like, what are you going to do with an art degree? You can do a lot. We have a lot of students that are successful. The school itself has a physical plant or an area on campus of 2 buildings. We'll go through the Schrader Art Building first. The Schrader Art Building is built with old suitcase money. The Schraders were the family that made Samsonite luggage. So back in the 70s, they donated to the university, and that's how we got the Schrader Art Building. We'll run through some of these spaces. So the Davis Gallery is our newest exhibit space. When you enter the building, it's on the main floor. It is for students to use, and outside groups have come in to show work. It's a really dynamic gallery space that is driven to to bring the community in, and it's fairly new. This is just the 2nd year that it's been running. Our major gallery space is the Vicki Murin Gallery. We will do traveling shows. We'll develop things in-house for this space. The BFAs, when they graduate, show here as well. It's a pretty dynamic area. We're looking at just one end of it. It changes quite a bit depending on the show. The last show that was up, all the walls were painted bright red. And then in between striking that show and putting up the current show, they painted it all white again. So it's constantly changing. Here is one of our art history spaces. This is this gentleman here pointing at the screen. That's Scott Montgomery. He is a medievalist, and he also is really into psychedelic poster art of the 60s and 70s. And last year, he released a documentary film about a space close to DU that had a lot of large acts come through it during the 60s. And that's called, it's something of the dog. I think it's called The Tale of the Dog. I think that was the name of the venue. This is our dark room. That's my third art joke. This is what it really looks like. The photo area is starting to show its age. So it's original to the building. It's slated for the next thing for a remodel, but we still do in moderation wet chemistry photography as a starting point. Most of the non-art majors that come through our program will latch onto photo first. That tends to be the gateway art form. I think that's the one that's less intimidating because everybody has a camera with them and they can take a picture. This is our print making studio. This area has a lot of different processes in it. What we're staring at into the bright light there, that end of the studio is screen printing. Over here where these metal vents are, those are for etching and engraving. We also do lithography, modern lithography where we can burn plates, and we also do it on the stone. We also do intaglio in relief. So is there a monster in the Schrader Art Building? The answer is yes, there is. This is an example of just some guerrilla art that popped up in the building. I have no idea who did this. But there are these footprints that you can follow and then go underneath the stairs. So things like this pop up every once in a while. As long as it's not illegal or hurting anybody, we'll leave it up. We're looking at the ceramics studio here. The ceramics program probably has the widest range of technology right now. In this space, we've got 3D printers for clay, a CNC machine that we use to cut out forms, slip casting. But then there's also ancient wheels that you power yourself. But we have one kick wheel that you can you actually kick it to make it go to spin the wheel to make pots. With ceramics, you can kind of see it outside there. There's a soda kiln, and over here we have a large car kiln. So it's pretty hands-on still, even with all the technology. And this would be the second one. Like once people get their hands dirty, they tend to go to ceramics after they've done photography. Oh, there's a building that sits directly behind the Schrader Art Building, which is the Nagel Art Studios. Look at that. This is our main painting studio space. You can kind of see this over here. This was another mural that a student did. This is another very dynamic space. It changes quite a bit. Right now, this quarter, we're teaching an encaustic class. That's where you use beeswax and pigment to paint. There's a color theory class and an intro to oil painting class in this space. I wish we had like a VR set for this because it's pretty impressive when you're in the area. You don't kind of get the scale of it in the picture. This is our dedicated drawing studio here. No windows in this space. That's so we can have live models. This is the cleanest you'll ever see this space. This is a 2D room. So the way our program's set up for the BA and the BFA in studio art, there's a string of foundation classes that everybody takes before moving on to the more advanced studio classes. This is where we hold our 2D class. This is a lounge area in the Nagel Art Studio. Surprisingly stays relatively clean for the amount of traffic that it gets. This is also where the painting studio and some of the foundation stuff will do their critiques out here on this wall. It again is always changing depending on what the work is. Outside of the campus, like off campus, we have a museum. called it's the Madden Museum. We're the stewards of the collection. So DU was gifted John Madden's art collection, and we're still housing it in the museum space. We'll send classes out to the Madden Museum. We'll also have students work with the curators out there to do different shows. And then west of campus, we have an area called the Hamden Arts Study Center. That's where, if work isn't on display, that's where it lives. It's out in that facility. And we'll send classes out to handle the artwork there. That's really good for the art history program, the art conservation program, and our studio classes will go out there too to see different processes. Like our printing professor likes to take a class out to look at the different printing processes that the students will be doing, because you can get a kind of hands-on look at the finished product. Most of all, we're a pretty good community, the art school. Our size is medium, so there's enough students where you're meeting new people, but there's not enough that you would ever be lost. As far as the majors go, the BA in art is between 50 to 60 majors throughout the 4 years. The BFA program is between 8 to 15. Art history is 30 students. And then we've got a very small program called pre-art conservation. That's a prep program to go to grad school to become a conservator. The most we've ever had that in that program across the 4 years was 8. So that's a very focused program there. So it's you're not going to be lost or hide, but it's a big enough community to kind of like feed off that energy of being creative and people like lifting each other up. That was my very quick, streamlined spiel of the art school. Are there questions?
Yeah, participants, feel free to use the Q&A section of this presentation to ask your questions. I do have a question for you. So can you maybe talk a little bit about the difference between a BA and a BFA? Because I actually personally have a Bachelor of Arts in Studio Art, and my friend has a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Studio Arts. So maybe what the difference is in between those two.
That's a really great question. It's really the amount of art that it takes to satisfy the degree according to accrediting bodies. So what that means is that the BA is a liberal art degree. You're doing a fair share of study in the arts. For us, it's 60 credits. The BFA is double that. So the BA is 60 credits. Our BFA, to get the major credits, is between 110 and 35 credits. There's a spread there. Because of that, there's less requirements on the university side. So the BFAs are not required to study a second language or have a minor, and they have one less science class because that time is spent in studio classes. With that being said, if you were a BFA and you wanted to study Italian, I'm not going to stop you. Nobody's going to stand in your way. I have plenty of BFA students that also pick up minors. It's just not required. The BA, as a liberal art degree, is more flexible. So you're still doing quite a bit of art, but you can pick up a minor, and you can also double major fairly on paper. You could choose to study hard things, but you could double major on paper really easy. Like if you're going to get another BA, it just slots into where all your outside electives would be. Those would be the other major requirements.
Awesome. Okay, we have a couple of questions in the chat box. So it looks like there's a couple of questions about what does support look like for students double majoring in art and another major, and then kind of if you could speak to the difficulty of what that might look like if students are double majoring or minors.
I don't think it's difficult. as far as like the structure of it and the procedure and like any hoops that you have to jump through, it's not hard at all. It's coming to me and filling out a form, and we submit it to the registrar, and then you're a double major. Like I said, you're taking the same amount of credits whether you're double majoring or not. The biggest trick would be scheduling, and we're there to help. The studio classes are way different than the rest of your studies at DU. So most of the classes that you'll be involved in will meet twice a week for 2 hours each time, where studios meet twice a week for 3 hours. So we don't exist on the normal block schedule. Because of that, it can be a little more difficult, but not impossible, because I have a lot of students double major. It just takes a little more planning. That's it. That's the hardest thing is planning around that. In the double major, this is going to get into semantics. Double majoring is anything with another BA with it. You do have the opportunity to take art as a secondary major, which means if you were going to focus in on the hard sciences, get a Bachelor of Science, you could take our art degree as a secondary major. And all that means is you're doing the same thing as an art major, but on your transcript, it'll say Bachelor of Science in science, like whatever that's going to be, like physics or engineering, and then a secondary major in art on your, that's what it is. And as far as the world, very few people care about the letters. You know, it matters to those that it matters to. Like if you're going to make a career as an artist, I would say make that your primary thing. That's probably a little bit easier to get into grad school if that was a consideration, but you know, the most important thing is what you're doing with the art.
Thank you. Another question, can you give some examples of successful paths for the pre-conservation career focus?
Yeah, so I mean that it's there in the title. They move from pre-art conservation to conservation to become art conservators. It's hard. I won't pull any punches with that. Like that program looks like on paper, it looks like a BA in art history, a BA in studio art, a minor in a language, and a minor in biochemistry. So it takes a certain mindset to be able to do those 4 different quadrants. And the art conservator world itself is pretty gatekeepery. That's my like, I'm not an art conservator, and I don't want to be hunted down by them if I say something wrong, but because it's such a serious thing, you've probably seen the memes of somebody like ruining a piece of art. That's what they're trying to prevent. So it's a lot of leveling up, of like getting internships under conservators, getting them to vouch for you to get into grad school. But once you're in there, there's a lack of conservators. They need more conservators. So once you get through all those steps, you're in, and you can work in any museum or in private practice. Denver alone has the Western Conservatory Center, and then all the museums have conservators in them as well. So it's a very focused, dedicated career path. That's something that you want to do.
Okay, we have a couple more coming in here. So this question, a little long, says, wondering if professors help students interested in different disciplines, majors like art history and classics, or art history and psychology. Can they help the student craft a program that might identify some logical overlap to kind of strengthen the end combination, I guess, to strengthen the overall degree that's achieved at the end?
Yeah, you're not going to be in a want of advice in advisors. Like you'll have your major advisors, you'll have your first year advisor, and then a string of people in like the central advising. I'm here to help. That's part of what I do. It's a lot of what art is, and like why you would study art, not do it on your own, is for that reason, is the networking of it. All our faculty are either working professional artists as the adjuncts, and they're connected to the art community, and they're different things. There's very few of them that are just doing one thing. So the idea of like doing art and psychology to go into like art therapy, that road's been laid down. Like there are people that have done that, and it's not anything that's gonna make people think that you're crazy for wanting to do that. So in all those departments, that's what they're there for. They're there to help you figure that stuff out.
More questions here. Let's see. Are there classes in animation or character design if thinking more towards film graphic novels?
We're not a graphic design school. With that said, I've had students do independent studies on their own to do some animation. There's some animation through computer science because of the video game design degree. So it exists a little bit on campus. Where our students pick that up is usually when they go abroad. I had a student once went to a university in Tokyo and came back with a hand-drawn cell animation film. So whatever we don't offer in-house, that's where students pick it up when they go abroad. We also have, it's not me, it's not the School of Art, but there is film, media, and journalism studies. So they also have things that you can tap into.
Another participant asked, can you use the studios and learn mediums even if you're not specifically in that class?
That's a good question, and the dodgy answer is it depends on how you ask. So each studio area has a full-time faculty member that holds dominion over their studio area, and they're all different. So ceramics, you have to take the intro class or prove to the ceramics professor that you know what you're doing before they let you in. Other things are a little more open, like our painting studio is open. And if you just talk to our painting professor and be like, you know, can I sit up here in the corner? That usually works. Sculpture takes a little more oversight just because of the power tools and the things in there. So it can be done. You just have to learn how to talk to the right people. We don't have, it's not like you can just show up and start doing something. You have to get vetted.
Thank you. Can you give a few examples of some internships for art history or studio art majors?
Yeah. The art history tend to go work with all the galleries that are around Denver, or if you're, as an undergrad, if you're a little more tenacious, you could get into the major museums. Most of the undergrads will do internships with smaller private galleries. That also works in-house too. We have the different galleries on campus that you can intern with, and just different, like the Vicky Murin Gallery uses a lot of undergrads to help out with what they're doing. Studio art is all over the place. I'll have students go and work with working artists. They have their studios, or there are different programs around where they're established, like what's the anthropology, the story anthropology. I think I'm getting that. I'm not too hip. So some of we've had some students do like anthropology has a specific internship for window dressing, like to design the windows. That one's been popular. So the big thing with here, pulling back the curtain, especially with studio, I field a lot of things that turn out that it's just somebody wanting somebody to do art free. So if that's what they're saying and that's honest, I'll send that out to students. It's really easy to get people to want you to do your craft for nothing and call it an internship. So I really want the internship to be an actual learning experience. Like you're working with somebody, because you're essentially paying DU to work for somebody for free. And that feels a little like you're being exploited. So I try to protect the students that way. With that said, they come in and it really just depends on what you're interested in. With that said, on the other side, there are a flood of things that come in where somebody wants a student to help them with some kind of art project. I had one this week was an older woman who's looking for a student to paint a big mural in her house. So that's just a gig, that isn't an internship. That's just somebody working with this person to produce a piece of art for her. So those come in as well. And they're also learning experiences.
We got a couple more minutes here and a couple more questions. So is it possible to finish your degree in 4 years if you start as a BA student and switch to a BFA later on?
Yep, it can be done. There are points of like no return. So what we mostly want to make sure with the BA, it usually goes the other way actually. So it's easier to start as a BA and then declare the BFA. Most students figure that out around the end of their sophomore year, beginning junior year, and it's still plenty enough time. It's harder to go the other way. To start off as a BFA, we have a checkpoint for them to make sure that like they discover they like political science and art or something else, and they want to do the double major, and they're not going to have the time to finish up the BFA. We have a point where we're like, okay, this is where you're going to have to like jump to the BA so you can pick up the language and make sure that you get that extra science class. So it's actually harder to go the other way timing wise. The other way, the BA, everything that you do for the BA fits within the BFA. So if you're following that whole thing, it's a perfect path.
All right, we've got time for one more question. So curious how many students usually get a studio art minor, and is that the typical 20 hours for a minor, and are minors limited on the classes they can take?
Our minor, we do everything more. So our minor's 24 credits, it's 6 classes. There are 2 required classes. You have to do drawing and you have to do one of the foundation classes. Other than that, you can take any class that you want.
Okay, we do have a couple more questions. I feel like
Sure.
so if you're able, I'll put them together. So what internships are available for the pre-art conservation students, and are there opportunities to work as a TA in DU's art department?
So pre-art conservation, it's usually with a conservator. The past couple years, what we've been doing is having a conservator come into DU and work on something in the collection itself. But you could also do the internship with museums or other private collections. That's probably the thing that takes the most logistics with that program, is finding the conservator that can supervise that. So like I said, over this summer, we had 3 students do their internship under a conservator with our collection. So that worked out. For TAs, that's a grad position. But there are opportunities for studio students and even art history students to work in the studio areas as like lab studio assistants that way. So there are ways to work within the school. It's a little bit of just like semantics, but TAs, that's a grad school thing.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you would like to connect with your counselor, I did put a link in the description box or in the chat box rather, for you to do so. I also included a link to DU's YouTube webpage, which has past virtual info sessions on academic programs, student life, and support programs. But thank you so much for joining us, Jason, and I hope you all have a great evening.
Yeah, thanks.
Here.